seems to be what Charlie was going through in 2025, which is getting really tired of the pressure of people telling you something that you're doing is wrong or saying is wrong when it so clearly is not. And I held the line. I said, I'm not apologizing. If me saying genocide is always wrong brought tears to their eyes, then these people are demons. Like, what? Like, excuse me?
Candace Owens just shredded Zionists for continuing to lie about Charlie Kirk and her relationship with him, and in this clip she gets into Charlie's real feelings about anti-Semitism and why she believes he was going through at the end of his life something that she went through at the beginning of 2024. So let's take a look. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
The attacks against me from AIPAC citizens or Zionists are now bordering on the hysterical. I mean, last week was insane. I got to the point where I just shrugged. Kanye shrugged. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to say. But this was just so funny. I had to share it. I have been meaningfully reported to the FBI and the CIA. And I want to be very clear. You guys are all complicit. Just this weekend, this is real. A real live tweet came from Laura Loomer, our resident psycho. She tweeted this. She's been attacking me nonstop. As part of her grift to monetize the murder of her quote unquote best friend, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens is selling a CIA line of merchandise that is called the Candace Intelligence Agency, which rips off the CIA name and logo. It is a federal felony to use the CIA seal without license. She then cites the code and reads it, sends a quote from it rather, pulls it, and then says, "You are likely breaking the law with your CIA merch, Candace. The CIA can technically sue to get Candace to stop using their logo." It's really disrespectful to Charlie Kirk and the CIA. And then she CCs and tags the director of the CIA,
who, of course, is the biggest neocon Zionist stooge, John Ratcliffe, the guy who played a principal role in expanding FISA 702 warrantless wiretapping. But isn't this just a vile and reprehensible person to cry to the feds about this and try to throw Candace under the bus because she doesn't have the same opinion on Israel as me? And guess what? She doesn't believe that you're telling the truth about Charlie Kirk. That's what Laura Loomer is going to do. What a preposterous thing to see. This is so pathetic. I think this is low even for her, and that's something to be said.
Now, as everybody who watches this show knows, we've been selling that merch since before Charlie got assassinated. So we just continued our show with the merch that we already sold for our show. Obviously, our parody off of the CIA, which is perfectly legal, obviously, was related to the fact that we're always investigating things. So don't let the truth get into your way when you're smearing somebody. But the audacity to actually tag the director of the CIA and ask us to go to prison or to get into trouble is just, I think it really highlights they're insane. It is just insanity. It is reaching new levels. I love the guy who then tweeted under her. This was so good. He just said, "Look at Amazon committing all of these quote unquote federal felonies." And then he says, "F Israel first, Laura Loomer," as just a little side note. And
that's a good closer, by the way. And I have to say, man, I need to get one of these shirts now just for this. Just for Laura Loomer crying to the CIA, tagging the director, trying to get her charged with a, just an absurd crime that even if that is true, it shouldn't be a crime. And you're a pathetic loser to do that. I'm going to get a Candace Intelligence Agency shirt just for that because of how absurd that is. Just because the Zionists are losing control of the information. They're losing this propaganda war. They're trying to double down on whatever Netanyahu wants to do in Gaza, which, by the way, is an ethnic cleansing campaign. There's no easy way to say that. There's no nice way to say that about a genocide that the U.S. is bankrolling, that Trump is looking the other way from. That is the truth, and I'm buying one of those shirts now, so maybe you'll see it on a future video.
He shows all the t-shirts on Amazon because, obviously you can buy yourself an FBI costume for Halloween if you'd like to. But that wasn't enough because last week was that insane. They just tried to wipe away years of my life by pretending, completely fictionalized, that Charlie and I had a breakup, right? Eric Bowling did this. He said, I don't know if he was even sober on that program because he said he hadn't seen me, this is Eric Bowling, since 2015. He interviewed me in 2020, so that was weird. But they were clearly, the call went out to just make up something that never happened. Never happened. I never had a falling out with Charlie Kirk. And so this guy, Awesome Jew, who I heard was also in the Hamptons with Bill Ackman and that group of people who went out there, he then tries to cleverly release a text message between Charlie Kirk and an unknown individual. The text message has no date, it has no time, and I'm going to tell you why that is, and I'm going to tell you exactly when that text message had to have occurred. But him releasing this tweet spectacularly backfired. The goal, of course, was to prove that Charlie and Candace had a falling out. Look at this message. Charlie's talking trash about Candace, except he's not at all. Instead, what the message did is that it proved exactly what I was saying, that donors and Zionists were attempting to control his speech, my speech, and who he platformed. So these are the text messages that he shared, and he wrote exclusive. A close friend of Charlie Kirk shared these messages. I'm going to guess it's either Seth Dillon or Josh Hammer. It could not be, but I'm just putting that out there because of.
By the way, Dave Smith hammered Josh Hammer like a nail into a board at that Turning Point USA debate about Israel. That was one of the things that Bill Ackman seemed to have gotten particularly enraged about, in addition to Tucker Carlson saying, hey, it's impolite to say, I know it's politically incorrect to say, but Epstein was probably working for Israel. And by the way, it's not anti-Semitic to criticize Israel, both of which are things that you just can't say if you're a Zionist. If you're a Zionist billionaire that's funding this organization, you can't let him get away with that.
The style of the messages. And he says he was never wavering on Israel, and he was actively pushing back on Candace Owens' false narrative. Now, these are the messages he shared. This is the friend of Charlie in blue. He writes, I watched the podcast. Candace needs to say two things, and this will stop in its tracks. They are fundamental conservative principles, and she didn't say either. Quote, Israel is not committing a genocide. Second quote, 30 dead, raped, kidnapped, and beheaded Americans in Gaza makes the fight in Gaza America first.
And just listen to this. How 1984 and Orwellian is this that you're like, she has to say both of these two things. And it's just like the liberal establishment saying that you have to denounce the current thing. This is the current thing you have to do. In my head, it's just that NPC meme that you see with, those NPCs with the bubble above their head all parroting the same thing. That's exactly what this is, but Zionist flavor. This is the red flavor of that, I guess. Totally indistinguishable as far as I'm concerned.
And then he ends it by saying, this is not Ukraine. He's literally saying what I have to say to make something stop in its tracks, right? And then Charlie writes, this is right. I'm really trying to help her. What else is he going to say to this person? And then, but it's that second message that I can tell you exactly what the context was, because I was messaging Charlie about it, and I can tell you the time frame and why they wiped it is because it's from 2023. He then writes, it doesn't come natural to her because I truly think she doesn't understand. Saying that Muslims are forced to live in a Muslim quarter in Israel, and that betrays the timeline. Okay. So what clearly happened in this text chain is that I tweeted, this is when it all started for me, and I started getting threats that I had to take it back if I wanted my life back. And he's kind of saying that there, right? This will all stop. I tweeted that genocide is always wrong. Here's the exact tweet. No government anywhere has a right to commit a genocide ever. There is no justification for a genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state.
Just think of that. This was the most controversial thing that she stated that put her in the crosshairs of Ben Shapiro, all the Zionists complaining about it. I'm seeing that meme in front of me. But hey, man, this is where her arc became so amazing, I think, in the dissident world. And I'm so glad that she stuck to her guns on this, because this is about the least controversial thing you should possibly be able to tweet. But no, this is treated like this is some extremist statement. She was called a Hamas supporter for this. She was called a terrorist. Despite the fact that, guess what? It was Netanyahu that funded Hamas, something that she's talked about regularly. And by the way, he gave him $1.8 billion over several years through Qatar as an intermediary. But hey, Qatar's supposedly funding, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. No, they funded Hamas for Netanyahu. They were the middleman in that funding scheme.
That tweet was me responding to something that Brian Mast said in Congress. He said, there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian life. That was grotesque. So I then started getting peer pressured to correct the tweet, to apologize for the tweet. At the time I was at the Daily Wire, that I needed to understand why my tweet was wrong. Dave Rubin instantly replied and said something about Israel, even though I didn't mention Israel in the tweet. And by itself, it was, I still stand by that tweet, guys, years on. And I was being inundated. Charlie was being inundated. Like, how could she say this? How dare she say this thing? This is so wrong. And then I hosted somebody who was a Zionist on my show. And that's what he's referring to, the conversation that I had with Ami Kozak. And clearly Charlie probably said to him, you can watch this to get her viewpoints. Candace is not anti-Semitic. And that guy is not having it. He is incensed. And he is saying, here are the words that we have to hear from Candace. The reason they stripped that and didn't put the date that it was 2023 is because then it destroys the narrative that they're trying to put out that me and Charlie had a falling out, because obviously I went on tour with Charlie at the beginning of 2024 and I spoke at their conference in the summer of 2024. And, you know, don't let the facts get in the way of this bizarre narrative that Charlie and I had some falling out last year, which never happened.
And that's true. We've talked about it on this show before in other videos. You can find that speech that she gave at Turning Point USA last year. And yeah, this buffoon completely lied about it on PBD's show, Eric Bowling. And by the way, on that show, he said that he was on the board of directors of Turning Point USA. Turns out he's not, unless the website's incorrect, or if they have some different board of directors, a board within a board or something. That doesn't seem to be plausible, but he did state emphatically, I'm on the board of Turning Point USA. You know, I haven't seen her since 2015. She had a falling out with Charlie. All this is lies. I'm not sure if PBD himself has weighed into this to correct it, but they let that guy go unchallenged on the show and even back the narrative completely. But Candace has been vindicated on this, showing receipts every time, including this one. And yeah, I'm so glad she stuck to her guns on that tweet. Again, this is why we love Candace so much, is because she wouldn't apologize for what she shouldn't have apologized for. It's no different than the liberal wokesters that wanted people to apologize if you say, like, there's two genders only and men can't get pregnant. Apologize. You need to say that there's no such thing as two genders. Genders, you know, are fluid. You can have 52 of them, whatever they wanted people to say, right? Well, if you stick to your guns on that, that's less controversial in conservative circles than saying no, genocide is wrong no matter who does it, including Israel. And that's why we love Candace Owens.
Rather, what happened was Charlie was peer pressured by these same individuals that I, you know, for me not to speak at AmFest. And I was just like, dude, I don't even care, which is what I told you. Now, in terms of his statement there, that Charlie's viewpoints were not changing at all. These are not words that I put in Charlie's mouth. You can just go back and watch the things that he was saying. He hosted a sit down, which was incredible, actually, to discuss what anti-Semitism is and what anti-Semitism is not. It was a town hall of sorts with students. Gen Z, as Megyn Kelly said, you can't find anybody beneath the age of 30 that supports Israel. That's a fact. And Charlie was trying to communicate that their tactics, just like you see in that text message, was hurting their cause. People are tired of it. We're tired of being bullied. For me, they behaved like a mafia. There's no other way to say it. My livelihood was being threatened. And then eventually, obviously, I lost my job behind the scenes, telling me what I had to say if I wanted to, I don't know, still be welcomed into the circle. And I made a conscious decision to not be welcomed into. I don't want to be around people that are behaving like that are speaking like the way that person is speaking. Here's what she needs to say. Who are you? I don't need to say anything. My statement was fine. Genocide is always wrong. Okay? It's just always wrong.
Man, and I just love this. This is why she has such integrity compared to all of her Zionist detractors put together. Because she will stand on truth regardless if it hurts your precious Zionist narrative, your Israel first toxic mentality, tarnishing U.S. foreign policy, tarnishing our own sovereignty as a country, and our ability to focus inward maybe on domestic issues rather than just subsidizing the security. And by security, I mean the bloodshed, genocide, and warfare of a foreign state in the Middle East. you know, the AIPAC and Israel lobby's favorite country. It's not America, it's Israel. That's the Israel First doctrine. It's the Israel First credo, and it's toxic, pestilent, and pernicious no matter how you slice it. We love Candace Owens for sticking to her guns on that. Fantastic.
And you're not going to convince me that I've done something wrong. They wanted me to apologize. I was being told I needed to issue a public statement to apologize for the tweet that I just read to you. Genocide is always wrong. Wackadoodle. Anyways, let's hear Charlie Kirk in his own words. This is from July of this year. He was hosting that town hall about anti-Semitism. Skylar, let's first run the clip of just before we get into the AIPAC clip, just him discussing with Gen Z anti-Semitism. Take a listen.
You're not anti-Israel. You don't wish them harm. You're not, like cheering on Iran.
No, I support Israel. I think they're our ally. I want them.
But you would be called an anti-Semite by some people for saying this.
And I think that's ridiculous. I don't hate Jews because I think a nation should defend themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I think that's the most ridiculous thing ever.
I feel like it's becoming like the word racism. Like, we just disagree with them, so we just have to call them a name. I don't think they're actually anti-Semitic. I think people just can't agree with them and they can't prove them wrong. So they just throw a word out and be like, you're anti-Semitic because you think that we should stop sending our money there.
These kids are smart, by the way. Let's just be real. And, they don't have as anti-Israel views as I do, but these kids get it, man. And these are the types of kids that Charlie was dealing with, in addition to the rich Zionist donors that don't want this stuff discussed. So he had an interesting dynamic in his organization.
That I see amongst the people I'm around, I do see more like general disdain towards, just being honest, Jewish people.
That's correct.
Just because they're constantly being told that you hate Jews. And it's like, fine. If you're going to say I hate Jews over and over and over again, like, if I'm going to be convicted of the crime, I might as well do the crime. I fear the same thing happens with all the talk of race. The more we talk about it, the more we bring it up, the more racism actually happens.
This is like, I try to tell, thank you for saying this. Like, because like, I try to tell these people and they're like, we must get more aggressive. And so like, let me ask a question. If we were to remove, like if people said what Tucker said is anti-Semitic, I don't hold that view. But it's like a lot of people on Twitter are like calling us out and like, whatever. That's not going to happen. But if we were to cancel Tucker, would anti-Semitism increase or decrease?
I think increase, because that means any supporter of Tucker Carlson's statement therefore makes them anti-Semites.
Guilt and association, 100%.
Exactly.
But the binary that's presented is that if you don't passionately talk about it, you are a hater. That's probably destructive for everybody involved. So for me, I'm trying to find this new path, which is, I love Israel. I visited there. My wife and I had the best experiences ever. I saw where Jesus rose from the dead and he walked on water. But also, I'm an American, and I represent a generation that can't afford anything, and that we are like flooded with illegals, and no one speaks English, and our hospitals are clogged. I think we need to have the prudence to reject the Jew hate. Like, okay, we're not going to put up with that. That's dumb. But also, if you call everyone an anti-Semite, if they don't take a puritanical view of the Netanyahu government, then I think it's bad for everybody.
Yeah, man, and that clip shows you why Charlie Kirk, despite being a Zionist, was not a Ben Shapiro Zionist. He had a nuanced view of this compared to the most ardent Zionists among us. And you know their names on Twitter. We've talked about some of them today already. But because he was in such a special and unique dynamic that was maybe even unique to him on the right, this organization, to make it run, it took both the Zionist rich billionaire donor class, the Bill Ackmans of the world, and it took these young activists that are moving in a different direction when it comes to U.S. policy toward Israel, the proclivity to fund Israel no matter what, that they just didn't believe in that. So he had to have both. He had to have the buy-in of both groups to make this run. Now, there's going to probably be exceptions to that. Some of the young, activists probably did believe in Zionism, did believe in funding Israel. Certainly Charlie believed that too. He talked about it routinely. Even in this clip, he defended Israel. He said, I had such a great time there. It's a great country. He said lots of interviews where it's like, that's my second favorite country. He has denied, that it was a genocide. He's denied the starvation. We've talked about it before, but like in this video, on July 28th, which was late July. It was around the time that this video was taken. He was doubling down on some of the Hasbara propaganda, but at the same time, he wasn't Ben Shapiro. That much is clear. And, you know, there's something to be said for that. He had to navigate really, you know, sketchy waters. He was in a rock and a hard place. He had to bridge this gap between different dynamics in his organization. I think that explains his mentality toward Israel and how it was shifting more than anything, especially in this last months, maybe even more than his personal beliefs about this. But you can tell he's emphatically, you know, agreeing with what these kids are saying about the overuse of anti-Semitism. Same thing that the liberals did with racism. It's just a bludgeon designed to shut down conversations and dialogue, and it makes the situation even worse.
Again, that's him in his own words, just a little over a month before he lost his life. So I don't understand them. I don't know what they're trying to win here. And then he takes it a step further. They talk about a no-go zone. You imagine he's got these donors, they're threatening him. And it is very difficult to not see, as I do, that what I went through in the beginning of 2024 seems to be what Charlie was going through in 2025, which is getting really tired of the pressure of people telling you something that you're doing is wrong or saying is wrong when it so clearly is not. It's almost like they try to make you think you're in a psychosis, right? It's a level of gaslighting you've never seen before. It's like, how could you say? What did you mean when you said genocide is always wrong? I can help you. I'm your friend, Candace. Don't you see why you should say sorry for that tweet? I know. I look back at text messages. I know other Jewish people, you know, they love you, but they were hurt. You know, they saw your tweet and they just said, what happened to Candace? They said it brought tears to their eyes. And I held the line. I said, I'm not apologizing. If me saying genocide is always wrong brought tears to their eyes, then these people are demons. Like, what? Like, excuse me? So that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. And I also just want to say that Tucker Carlson was amazing at last night as well. I know he's catching a lot of flack, but what his message was very important. He shared the story of Christ and that these people who plot and lie and, you know, censor and pass laws, all it ever does inevitably is the exact opposite of what they're hoping that it does. And that really is the lesson.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And, you know, as far as I see it, Candace is a hero for doubling down on her tweets about Israel, calling it a genocide. That's something that Charlie never did, so that parallel doesn't really fit. But there's no question he was thinking about these issues probably in a different way than he ever had before. Certainly Max Blumenthal's article in the Gray Zone talks about that he was essentially bombarded with a text barrage from wealthy donors and Netanyahu's most close friends in the United States, some of which did fund his organization. And, you know, he was frightened by the backlash, according to this close friend of his, this unnamed source that Max Blumenthal talked to. So there's a lot of credence in what, you know, Candace is saying here. He was feeling pressure in a way that few probably feel pressure because he was in a position to be so influential in this movement on the right, where Zionism is still a big part of it. That's not the case on the left, you know, where even the liberal establishment for a large part has a little bit rejected, you know, Zionism. Not completely. Obviously, there's the establishment Schumerites of the world that are going to throw as much money down the coffers of Netanyahu they can, no matter how many people he kills, no matter how duplicitous he is, no matter how many fraud or corruption charges are levied against him, no matter how much he wants to expand West Bank settlements in Syria and Lebanon, no matter how much, you know, he wants to just completely drag the U.S. into fruitless foreign wars, including the one in Iran recently, and including bombing Yemen for a month because Yemen dared to, you know, offer the Palestinians aid, one of the few countries that did that. That's a no-no. We have to have the GHF monopolize that and shut down 400 aid stations and reduce it to 4, and constrain and create conditions for stampedes and fire live rounds over those people gathering that aid, and actually IDF soldiers shooting many to death. We know a lot more about this because of the whistleblower Anthony Aguilar, also a hero if you're asking me. But as to whether Charlie was going through, you know, what Candace was going through, I think that there is a comparison there to some extent, but it certainly wasn't as profound as Candace's turn away from Israel and to, you know, stick by her tweet about genocide and then continuously, you know, go forward and be more and more critical about Israel during the schism with Ben Shapiro, which, man, the distant world should thank that schism for really playing out in front of our eyes. It's not going to be the last one, because I'm sorry, the right is going to move on a different direction in this way, because older people are not. They're dug in, you know, their minds are mostly set for the most part. Generalities here, generally speaking, I know there's exceptions, and young people are rejecting that mentality. They see it for what it is. It's counterintuitive, it's American last, and it's absolutely un-American. But what do you have to say? Let me know down below. Is Candace Owens right about Charlie and what he was going through at the end of his life? Is he and she right about anti-Semitism? And are the Zionists doing this erratic lie pattern because they're just so worried about the information being lost? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Candace. Thank you, Candace. Awesome story here. Please consider becoming a YouTube member of mine as well. If you click the join button below, you can get the bonus of all of my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, you know what I'm going to say. No more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.